Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to everyone here in the comments. It's my pleasure to be able to speak to everybody here at EvolveDrupal this afternoon. Excuse me. As mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about our migration story at the University of Waterloo, in particular focusing on how scale introduced and continues to pose certain challenges for us, and potentially some ideas about how you potentially overcome those. Especially if you are in a position where you're near or early on in your migration pilot process. I'll start with some table setting to talk about Drupal at the University of Waterloo. Drupal was first introduced at the University of Waterloo back in 2012. Excuse me. Through version 1 of what we call internally the WCMS, so the Waterloo Content Management System. And so at the time, this will be interesting. One second. Oh, thank you. So at the time, the version that was shipped was pretty straightforward. Drupal 7, one profile, one theme, somewhere between 30 and 40 modules. But if you fast forward to today, or namely June of 2021, which is when we were able to start shipping our first Drupal 8 websites. So the version that we committed to developing against and providing migration support for was what we call version 3, which has grown at that point to about 350 modules, multiple themes, and deployed across approximately 11 other websites. And so this is just a bit of a taste of the scale at which we are trying to manage our migration process at Waterloo. And clearly migrations pose potential challenges for any technology-related projects, such as this. And so what I'm going to try to do in the next few minutes is try to address those through 3 different yet related lenses. And where I'll start is how scale created challenges with respect to effort for us. Because the first question you might ask yourself is, why do you have so many websites in the first place? Is 1,100 websites actually needed? And in vacuum, no, they're not. I don't believe that the institution needs that many websites. But for reasons that are, I think, well understood by the entire colleagues in the room, the number is what the number is. And so rather than try to fight that, that energy and effort is better spent trying to do somewhat of what the obvious is, which is to engage all the stakeholders that are involved in your Drupal at your institution or organization, all the way from the person that logs into Drupal every day, to the person that logs in once a year, to the person that never logs in, but they happen to be a C-suite executive or sponsor. To try and get them to buy in and have full understanding and acknowledgement of just the sheer volume of work ahead. Because at a certain point in time, the work is the work, right? And I'm not a miracle worker, unless one of you are miracle workers and can slash that number and that footprint in half, then the sooner that we all acknowledge that the work is the work, and the work is going to take the time that it takes, the better off we'll be. Scale certainly also impacted and provided complexity around our approach. And so I started in my role in 2017, and one of the first projects that was introduced to me was the idea that we had to start thinking about and planning for this Drupal migration. And so my understanding and my assumptions and my hopes at the time were, yes, I acknowledge that this is a very important and significant upgrade, for sure, but that hopefully would be relatively straightforward. But as time goes on, as the months and the years go on, we go to quickly realize that that's not the case. Whether they're due to internal factors and layers of scope that we add ourselves, or factors beyond our control. And so the takeaway that I impress to this group is, if you're in a decision-making capacity, do what you can to try and protect that process, to try and make sure that that process continues to be aligned with the growing needs and outcomes of what your migration scale happens to be at a given moment in time. Because the approach that we developed back in 2017, 2018, while it works and we're able to make progress, certainly, it's not nearly as optimal or efficient or as effective as we would like to have in 2022. On a related note, you may also ask the question, was migration time the right time to layer on this additional work? And I wish I had a better answer for you other than maybe. I've certainly grown over the years that we've been doing this work to become a pretty staunch advocate of trying to protect the integrity of the migration process of a team that ultimately is supported. That said, I do also acknowledge and understand that sometimes the right time is now. And so our particular example that I'll point out that will be talked about by one of my team members shortly as well, was the decision made to merge and homogenize multiple Drupal 7 themes into a single Drupal 8 theme, to also adopt atomic design principles, to build a fully capable pattern lab in conjunction with our Drupal 8 tools. And if I had the choice to do it over again, would I? Yeah, absolutely I would. It was the right decision to make at the time. I compare and contrast that to other streams of work and initiatives that we layered on throughout the core migration process. And as someone in a decision-making role, on all sides, I can firmly say that I put a giant question mark on whether it was the right time. If the core objective of what we're here to do is ultimately to move sites out of Drupal 7 into Drupal 8, 9, 10, then when we start to lose focus of the core objective, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. So at the end of the day, I try to impress on my team the spirit and culture of continuous improvement and share different anecdotes that try to basically say, let's not try to boil the ocean, but sometimes now is the right time. And as long as, if you are in a decision-making role, as long as you give yourself the grace and be specifically judicious and strategic about when and where to use that approach, then you'll come out successful with it. Lastly, complexities and scale combined certainly added to the magnitude of the work that we're trying to do with our migrations. And so the way that I'll articulate that is through the footprint of our profile. So we're at about 350 modules, we're at multiple themes, dozens of CP editor plugins that we committed to migrate from campus. And so in and of itself, that's a lot of work, as I referred to earlier, in terms of effort. But additionally, there's the added element of risk. And if you're someone like me in a role where a lot of my day winds up being risk management, this isn't a Drupal thing, this isn't a migration thing, this is an open source thing. And as soon as your organization makes the choice to jump into Drupal, you're also inherently making the choice to inherit the risk that comes with that. Which from my perspective is what happens when someone in the community that does something that you're depending on walks away. And so with respect to migration, how did that manifest itself for us? Again, in the volume of modules and CP editor plugins that we committed to campus to migrate. And so the lesson to take from here isn't necessarily to dwell on the number, because again, for the same reason why we have 1,100 websites, we have 350 modules. Rather, it's fundamentally getting back to make sure you're open and transparent and communicating with all of the stakeholders that are associated with Drupal at your organization to make sure that they understand the impact of the work, as well as this is a good time to also remind them that they also did inherently assume that risk. And as long as you, at the outset of this process, can develop a strong, sound plan for how you're going to manage the inevitability of, in our case, we have 350 modules that we depend on. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when we start to run into modules where the maintainer either fully abandoned the module or expressly said, I'm going to maintain the D7 version of this, but I'm not working on a D8 or D9 upgrade path. That's all I'm going to do. So, as long as you can clearly and concisely articulate that to all your stakeholders and have that effective action plan of what you're going to do, then ultimately you're still going to be successful. So I don't mean to come across as the second that you have scale attached to your Drupal 7 migrations, that it's a kind of doom and gloom scenario. there's certainly a ton of successes that we have achieved over the months and years that we've been doing this work. And I have an awesome team that I get to work with every day, and I also have the privilege of working with super, super smart people, such as Walter Wicks, that has helped contribute and push us as far as we've been able to go. That said, if you're anything like me, there's always something nagging in the back of your mind. If there's something I could change, do over again, what up? And so, if there's one tidbit that someone in a similar position as mine could walk away with from today, I would consider that a successful. So, thank you for your time, and yeah, have a great day. Oh, sure. Apparently I can ask with questions. Yes.
You started with a multi-site implementation. What was the output?
I'll put in terms of multi-site.
So you started with a D7 massively multi-site implementation. What did you end up at?
So trick question, because as part of the added scope that we've added to the core migration work, we also added an on-prem to cloud pass migration. So we started with multi-site. We wound up with single site, but through unnamed vendors multi-site implementation version of it. If that makes any sense. No free shadows. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Round of applause.